Welcome to Speaking History, where we dive into the darkest corners of the past to uncover stories that have shaped the world. Today, we're taking a chilling journey back to the 13th century to explore the reign of one of the most feared conquerors in history, Genghis Khan. Known for his ruthless ambition and unparalleled military strategy, Genghis Khan didn't just build an empire. He carved it into the pages of history through acts of unimaginable brutality. In this video, we'll be revealing 4 of the most brutal acts committed by the Mongol leader that you probably didn't know. Stay with us because this is a story of power, fear, and destruction that will leave you speechless. Destruction of the Khwarazmian Empire. Let's begin with one of the most catastrophic events in the history of the Khwarazmian Empire, a once powerful Persian state that met its brutal end at the hands of Genghis Khan. The year was 1219, and the Khwarazmian Empire, led by Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad, was flourishing. But that was about to change in a way no one could have predicted. It all started with a simple misunderstanding, or rather a colossal mistake. Genghis Khan, looking to expand his empire and establish trade relations with the Khwarazmian ruler, sent a caravan of over 500 merchants, hoping to secure peaceful ties. But Shah Ala ad-Din, mistrusting Genghis Khan's intentions, did something unthinkable. He ordered the execution of the entire caravan, suspecting them of being spies. Now, most leaders would retaliate with a diplomatic warning or a military skirmish, but not Genghis Khan. This insult had lit a fire in him, and his vengeance would be like nothing the world had ever seen. In 1220, Genghis Khan launched one of the most devastating military campaigns in history, bringing his entire Mongol army to the doorstep of the Khwarazmian Empire. His forces, known for their speed and precision, moved like a storm across the empire, leaving a trail of destruction and death in their wake. City after city fell, starting with Bukhara. Genghis Khan's army didn't just defeat their enemies, they obliterated them. In a brutal show of force, they leveled entire cities, killing hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children. When the city of Nishapur fell, Genghis Khan ordered the slaughter of every single inhabitant, over 1.7 million people, according to some accounts. Those who weren't killed were enslaved, and the once great cities of the empire were reduced to smoldering ruins. Shah Ala ad-Din himself fled in terror, abandoning his people to face the wrath of the Mongol horde. But even running couldn't save him. Genghis Khan hunted him down, and in a twist of fate, the Shah died in exile on a remote island, powerless and broken. But Genghis Khan wasn't done. His army continued its path of destruction, ensuring that the Khwarazmian Empire would never rise again. What makes this act even more terrifying is the efficiency with which it was carried out, strategically wiping out not just the military forces, but the very cultural and economic lifeblood of the empire. This wasn't just war, it was annihilation, a terrifying display of Genghis Khan's cold, calculated brutality. By the time the Mongols were done, the Khwarazmian Empire was little more than a footnote in history, erased from the map and left in ashes. Massacre of Nishapur. As we move forward, let's dive into one of the most horrifying events in Genghis Khan's conquests, the Massacre of Nishapur. This was not just a military campaign, it was a chilling example of revenge taken to an unimaginable extreme. The story begins in 1221, during Genghis Khan's relentless campaign across Central Asia. His son-in-law, Tokuchar, was leading the Mongol forces in the city of Nishapur, a vibrant and wealthy city in what is now northeastern Iran. But during the battle, tragedy struck. Tokuchar was killed by a stray arrow. Now, in most cases, this would have been a normal casualty of war, but Genghis Khan's family took this death personally, very personally. Genghis Khan's daughter, Tokuchar's widow, demanded vengeance unlike anything the world had ever seen. Fueled by her grief and fury, she asked her father to make the city of Nishapur pay, not just in blood, but in total obliteration. And when Genghis Khan promised destruction, he meant it in the most brutal sense possible. The Mongol army descended upon Nishapur like a force of nature. The city had already surrendered, but that didn't matter. Genghis Khan's army stormed through the gates, and what followed was nothing short of a nightmare. They didn't just sack the city, they exterminated it. It is said that Genghis Khan ordered the complete annihilation of every living being in Nishapur. According to historical accounts, over 1.7 million people, yes, you heard that right, 1.7 million men, women, and children were killed in this massacre. No one was spared. The Mongols were known for their ruthless efficiency, and this massacre was no exception. They went from house to house, pulling people from their homes and executing them on the spot. But the massacre didn't stop with human lives. Genghis Khan's fury extended to the city itself. The Mongols tore down buildings, destroyed markets, and leveled entire neighborhoods, leaving Nishapur nothing but a lifeless, smoldering ruin. Even the animals weren't spared in this rampage. Horses, cattle, and pets, everything that lived within the walls of Nishapur was wiped out. But the horror doesn't end there. After the slaughter, Genghis Khan's men were given specific orders to decapitate every victim, separating the heads into pyramids, one for men, one for women, and one for children. This gruesome display was a brutal message to the world. Crossing the Mongols would not just lead to defeat, it would lead to total destruction. Nishapur was left as a wasteland, a once bustling city reduced to ashes and bones. The Mongols had not just destroyed the city physically, but they had wiped it off the map, erasing its culture, its people, and its history. What makes this event even more terrifying is that it was all done in the name of revenge for the death of a single Mongol general. The Massacre of Nishapur stands as one of the most extreme acts of retaliation in history, showcasing Genghis Khan's unparalleled ruthlessness. This event cemented Genghis Khan's reputation as not only a brilliant military strategist, but also a leader who would go to any lengths to avenge his bloodline. It was an act of destruction so complete that it left a scar on the region for generations to come. And we're only halfway through. The next brutal act on our list might just leave you questioning how far one man could go in his quest for dominance. The Decimation of Merv. As we continue our journey into the brutal conquests of Genghis Khan, we arrive at one of the most devastating episodes in human history, the Decimation of Merv. If you think the destruction of the Khwarazmian Empire and the massacre of Nishapur were horrifying, what happened in the city of Merv takes brutality to a whole new level. Merv, once known as the Pearl of the East, was a magnificent city in present-day Turkmenistan. It was a major hub of trade, culture, and learning, home to some of the greatest scholars of the Islamic world. In the early 13th century, it was one of the largest cities on the planet, boasting a population of more than 500,000 people. But in 1221, Merv's glittering legacy would come to a sudden and violent end. After decimating Nishapur, Genghis Khan's army turned its sights on Merv. The city's ruler, Ala ad-Din, knew that resistance would be futile against the unstoppable Mongol forces. Desperate to avoid the fate of his neighboring cities, he decided to surrender Merv to the Mongols in hopes of sparing his people. But this is Genghis Khan we're talking about, and mercy was never part of his strategy. The Mongols entered Merv under the pretense of peaceful negotiation, but soon after, they showed their true intentions. What happened next was nothing short of apocalyptic. Genghis Khan ordered his generals to round up every single inhabitant of Merv, men, women, children, the elderly, even animals. They were all brought out of the city, marched into the desert, and executed, one by one. By some accounts, nearly 1 million people were slaughtered, making it one of the deadliest mass killings in human history. But it wasn't just about the numbers. It was about how systematically the Mongols carried out the destruction. They didn't just kill for the sake of killing. Genghis Khan wanted to send a clear message to the world. Resistance would be met with annihilation, and he made sure that message echoed for centuries. The Mongols spared no one. They cut down soldiers, scholars, merchants, artisans, anyone who drew breath within the walls of Merv. The entire population was wiped out. After the massacre, Genghis Khan's forces didn't stop at human life. They razed the city itself, burning down homes, mosques, libraries, and palaces. Merv, once a thriving metropolis, was reduced to rubble and dust. The city's famed irrigation systems, which had turned the desert into fertile land, were deliberately destroyed, ensuring that Merv could never rise again. What was once a beacon of civilization became a barren wasteland, erased from history. But what makes the decimation of Merv even more chilling is the cold, calculated efficiency with which it was done. The Mongols didn't act in a frenzy of rage. They carried out the destruction with military precision, following orders to the letter. And by the end of it, the Pearl of the East was no more. This massacre wasn't just about conquering territory, it was about psychological warfare. Genghis Khan wanted the world to fear him, and fear him they did. After Merv, the reputation of the Mongols spread far and wide, with cities and kingdoms falling to their knees in surrender at the mere mention of his name. Mass rape by Khan's army. As we reach the final and perhaps the darkest chapter in our exploration of Genghis Khan's brutal reign, we confront an atrocity that left scars not just on the bodies, but on the souls of countless women and entire generations. The widespread and systematic mass rape committed by Genghis Khan's forces. While Genghis Khan is often remembered for his military genius and his conquests, there is a much darker side to his empire building, one that is rarely talked about. The Mongol Empire's strategy wasn't just about territorial dominance. It involved a horrifying level of personal and social violence that extended far beyond the battlefield. And perhaps the most harrowing aspect of this was the mass rape that accompanied his campaigns. Wherever the Mongol army went, they didn't just defeat their enemies, they dehumanized them. After cities were taken, the Mongol soldiers were often given free rein to loot and pillage, and that included the systematic sexual assault of women, regardless of age or status. Women were seen as spoils of war, trophies to be taken as a reward for victory. Entire cities' female populations were subjected to the horrors of rape and sexual slavery, with many being forcibly taken as concubines or wives by Mongol warriors. The scale of this atrocity is hard to comprehend. Historians estimate that Genghis Khan and his descendants fathered so many children through these forced sexual encounters that today, nearly 1 in every 200 men worldwide carry DNA linked to the Khan's bloodline. That's millions of people who are genetically tied to Genghis Khan, many as a direct result of rape. This staggering statistic highlights the sheer extent of the sexual violence committed during his campaigns. One of the most chilling aspects of this mass rape was its systematic nature. Genghis Khan didn't just allow these atrocities. He actively participated and encouraged them as a tool of control. Beautiful women were specifically targeted, rounded up, and brought before Genghis Khan himself. Many were taken into his personal harem, while others were distributed among his sons and generals. This wasn't just about physical domination. It was about psychological warfare. By violating the women of a city, the Mongols shattered the spirit of the survivors. They broke the will of their enemies, leaving a trail of trauma that would last for generations. In one particularly grim example, after the sacking of the Khwarazmian capital of Samarkand, Genghis Khan ordered that all the women of the city be taken as slaves. Many of them were subjected to horrific sexual violence, their dignity stripped away as their homes burned behind them. It wasn't enough for the Mongols to conquer the city. They had to desecrate it on the deepest human level. Thank you for joining us on this intense journey through Genghis Khan's 4 most brutal acts. If you found this exploration insightful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest chapters of history. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear which historical figures you'd like to learn about next. Stay tuned, because part 2 of this series is coming soon. Until then, keep your curiosity alive, and we'll see you in the next episode.